Hey guys, welcome back to Bi-Weekly Dev Talks presented by ISUGDC. But before we go on, I need to make a bit of a public service announcement. So yes, this series is being presented by ISUGDC. And yes, we are an officially sanctioned Iowa State University organization. However, I really want to make it known that these videos are no more for our members as they are for you guys and anybody watching these videos that is interested in game design or development or anything games related. If you're interested in watching this video, that's why we're making it, is for you guys. So, if any of you guys are from another campus's club or are an individual who is interested in learning more about this kind of stuff, feel free to message me on YouTube or shout out at us at ISUGDC on Twitter. We have a lot of different social media links, but Twitter's the best one to get in contact because I have that one on my phone. So this week, we got to talk to Dan Fornace, who's an indie dev who's living the dream that so many of us are chasing. But what's really interesting about him is that he actually started out in AAA development working at Microsoft Studios. But once he decided that that wasn't really his thing, he decided to leave and pursue one of his own personal projects as a professional project and release it under a different company's name. Now, Dan is a humongous fan of Super Smash Bros., but more specifically, Smash Bros. Melee. So it's not surprising to say that the project that he kind of headed up with this company is actually a platform fighter much in the same vein as Super Smash Bros. Melee. It has all the complexity that you could ever hope for. So if you're a fan of Smash Bros. Melee, definitely go check it out. It's called Rivals of Aether. I'll put the link in the description. And I really do suggest that if you're a fan of Smash Bros., you'll see it in the background of the interview. And you're gonna love it if you love Smash Bros. Melee. But without me wasting any more of your time, here's Dan.
Alright, so I'm Dan Fornace. I'm an indie game developer now. And, in the industry, I guess by trade, I used to be a game designer. So that's what I would go by, either developer or designer. And I got started making games in junior high, so before high school, using Game Maker. And I just used that kind of as a hobby. I used it all throughout high school, just like making games. I took a lot of art classes in high school, and then also just took regular high school classes. And then for college, I went to Drexel University in Philadelphia. And I did digital media was like the major, which is kind of all computer graphics all up. Mm-hmm. So we did web, we did 3D modeling, and we did a little bit of game development as well. And then I also just had like my own projects I was doing then. So the project that really kind of got me in the industry, I guess you would say, I actually started in college. I did it my senior year of college. It was called Super Smash Land, which was like a Game Boy remake of Super Smash Brothers. And really? So I made that when I was a senior, and I would just test it in the labs with like my friends in college. So like I just started putting videos on YouTube, and that got picked up by a lot of the blogs because like they like nostalgia and things like that. So that kind of got my name out there. So then in the end of my senior year, I actually got an interview with Microsoft Game Studios.
Really?
And that was my big resume piece, was just having a game that people had heard of. Like one of my interviewers had seen it like on a joystick, I think. Mm-hmm. So then that definitely helped a lot to have a game that people had seen before.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and then right out of college, I went to Microsoft Studios, and I worked there for 3 years as a designer, working on XBLA games. And then last year is when I left Studios to kind of start working on my own game, which is called Rivals of Aether. And it's a fighting game like inspired by Smash, so it kind of built off my past experience that I had working on the Game Boy remake.
Yeah. No, yeah, a natural progression. So actually, you brought up the point that having a game that people had seen before is a huge deal. That is something we hear from everyone. It's like one of the most common things out there. Just make games and hope show it off. Mm-hmm. While you were at school, did you work? Okay, actually, right now, are you working with a team or is it just you working on Rivals?
So when Rivals started, it was just me doing everything other than audio. So I was doing pixel art, design. It's made in Game Maker Studio, so I'm doing all the programming. And then over time, I started meeting people and adding them in to fill certain roles. So the art is like way better than my pixel art now, and that's because I picked up an artist last year who does all the stage backgrounds. His name's Johan Vignette, and he's like a pretty popular pixel artist on Twitter. So I just met him through Twitter, and then I picked up artists now to also do animations. I have a guy named Elian who's now doing character animation, and I'm like directing him rather than doing all the character animation myself.
Nice. How are you guys doing that all then? Are you doing it online, or actually do you live near each other?
No, so it's all remote. Everyone that works on the game like lives somewhere else. So Elian's in France. I had an artist that I was working with who's in Brazil. Then Johan's up in Canada. So like we just kind of all work on Skype, and then or by email. It depends on like the task, right?
Yeah.
Because like some will need a lot of communication. Like working on a character has a lot of back and forth, but then stages is a little bit less back and forth.
Yeah. Are you? This might be a bit too personal, but are you guys working on like a budget or anything like that, or like how are you managing like some of the costs that kind of come along with game development, or like what are some? Here's a good question. Actually, what are some of the like hidden things that you've run into that might be costly for this kind of stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, so the majority of the budget is just the money I saved up, like working at Microsoft Studios. So I was fortunate to get like a AAA job that was like, like paid well. So I just saved for 3 years kind of to be in a position where I could do an indie game. And then so that was like the main budget, and then the cost. Obviously, like development has a cost. Like working with artists, they're contracting, so you have to like. Basically, that's a cost. And then the biggest hidden cost is probably conventions, because you want to show off your game and you want to show it to as many people.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay.
But until the game's for sale, you don't actually have like a good feeling of how much conventions are actually helping you, right? Because they're just getting the word out. So you really have to be careful about picking the ones that you think have the most impact. And then just budget it well. Like, don't spend a ton on food, and try to get a cheap hotel and try to get the best flights, which is rough because to get the cheapest hotel, you want to stay there as few days as possible, but then to get the cheapest flights, you want to fly out on like Tuesday and days like that. So yeah, it's definitely just keeping track of conventions. Like I'm not going to go to all the ones that I could probably go to this year, but I have ones that I'm targeting that are like either work out with how I was traveling or are like pretty important for us since we're like a fighting game.
Well, like which ones are you trying to go to?
So we went to E3 actually.
Really?
2
You
weeks
were at
ago.
E3?
Yeah, and we were there because we're an ID'd Xbox game.
Oh,
and,
okay, gotcha.
They invited us to go, so obviously I hadn't been to E3 before, even at my time at Microsoft. So I really wanted to go to that, so obviously we went to that.
Yeah.
And then we're looking at EVO, it's indie section, and if we could get into that, that would
like the fighting game tournament EVO.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's in July. And then PAX Prime is right in Seattle, so that's another one where it would make a lot of sense to try to show at PAX Prime. So those are kind of the ones I'm targeting this summer.
Gotcha. Actually, would you be willing to like talk about that? Like, how do your conventions go? How do you get your name out there, I guess, or do you get floor space? I don't know. Talk a little bit about how the convention scene is with indie games, specifically from your point of view.
Right. So I've been really lucky because I've done GDC and E3 this year, and both times I went with Microsoft as part of their ID'd Xbox program, which they actually just have a kiosk at their booth for their indie games.
Yeah.
So that actually saves a ton of the cost of conventions. Because a lot of the cost is getting a booth, which can run you like usually 1,000 to 2,000 at like something like PAX. So that's just to have just the space for the 3 days or 4 days. And then the other costs are setting up your booth. So you'd purchase a banner, you'd get any kind of like free swag that you're going to give out. And then what a lot of people do is they'll go to like Best Buy close to the convention and they'll like buy a TV or two for the convention and then they'll return it.
Really?
Yeah, a couple days later. So like, and usually they'll give you like a full return if it's within so many days.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So it's become like this like rental system, which is like kind of odd. But that's what I hear what a lot of indie developers do. So then, and then once you're set up, you kind of the best way to get the word out is just have a good game that's like fun to play. We're pretty lucky because we're a 4-player, so like we can always have people playing, and like we'll never get too big of a line, but like everyone can kind of check it out because they can play a 3-minute match and then 4 new people play. But also like coming up with like free goodies is good, but that's gonna be expensive, and you don't want to like, if you're not known, you don't want to like buy a bunch of stuff, like buy shirts and things for a convention that you're just gonna have to like, you know, get rid of at some point, right?
Yeah, I gotcha.
So I'd say like your first convention, keep everything like minimum price, because you can always like scale up for the next one.
Yeah. Have you guys actually done that at all? Like bought goodies to sell, you know, swag?
Not really. Since we've been at the Xbox booth, we've just been there. Like we'll have a shirt for us that we have, but just business cards is like the only thing that we have really given out. But when we're looking at PAX and Evo, we'll be looking at like getting some free goodies right now, and like comparing costs of like if we do keychains or something else.
Yeah, I got you. How effective are actually the conventions? Like getting your name. Like, have you seen marked increase from these conventions? Because you know, a lot of us know about conventions. We've gone to them before. We've talked to indie developers before at conventions. But I've actually always been curious about how effective conventions actually help out and get your name out there and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's definitely like hard to put like a money value on it, right? Like you can't you can't be like, I spent $3,000 for this all up, and I definitely got $3,000 worth. It's more like for us, the best part of the conventions is getting people to actually play it, because a lot of times even like fans of Smash Bros will look at it and they'll be turned off by like the art style or like just like assuming that it probably controls or plays not very well. So when people actually play it, sometimes I'll see like a forum thread about the game, and then somebody will be like, oh, I played it at this conference and it actually like it feels really nice, and they'll be like, you guys should check it out. So that helps us, just having people who have like gotten their hands on it. Yeah. And then any press you get totally helps. We got a little bit from GDC, not really. We were more in like the group articles where they're like, here were the games that were playable. But then we got an article or two from E3, which was really nice. We got on Polygon, so that...
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that definitely helped us kind of get the game in front of more people, like more people's eyes.
Yeah, they seem beneficial. Like, they seem useful. I mean, yeah, like you said, you can't put money on it, but conventions just have always seemed super beneficial to getting your name out, like to getting the game out there.
Yeah, especially like if you can be on early access and go to a convention, that's kind of like the best case scenario right now, because you can even give out like a couple like free Steam codes, and then you can basically tell people they can buy the game, like, oh, you can get it right now. Which obviously like then people don't have to like remember it for when it comes up.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of early access, is Rivals in early access right now?
No, so we just got put up on Steam Greenlight like 4 days ago. And we did really well on that. And then we're actually going to be looking at early access. We'd love to be on there around the end of August. So, just like I was saying, it's really good if you could tell people you're on early access. If we go to PAX, then I would love to be on it before PAX, so then we can just tell people like they can check out the game on Steam.
How are you going up? So if you do go, have you given any thought at all about how you might do early access? Because a lot of people do, alphas, or they just kind of release the game as it goes until it's at release. How are you gonna kind of do yours? Is it gonna be, because there's like a different couple of strategies, like release a demo or make portion off a game that people play and test, or what's your kind of plan on it?
So our plan is to not have all the content until we launch for good. So then we're going to launch with 8 characters. So right now my plan is to do an early access build with 6 characters, and it'll have a practice mode, and it'll have a simple online kind of mode. But it won't have any of the single player features like arcade mode, which is like our story mode.
Yeah. That
kind of stuff will all go live when the game launches. So rather than coming out in early access and slowly getting all the features, it will be we'll come out in early access, we'll fix a lot of our bugs, fix the balance, and then when it's time to launch on both Xbox and Steam, we'll have both the versions kind of become full. So we're not gonna kind of whimper out. We're gonna try to do early access and then full release are both important dates.
So how come you have chosen to do that? What give a little bit of your what's your reasoning for choosing to do that as opposed to some of the other ones?
I think the big reason is so the release date actually matters, because I see some indie games they'll get a little bit of press when they go up on early access, and you won't ever hear that they actually came out. Just because they some games will be on early access for years too, right?
Yeah.
Because they could just keep working on it. But for us, we definitely want to get on early access so we can get a lot of the bugs kind of stomped out and see how people are doing with online. But then we also want to make sure the release is important too. So that's kind of why I'm thinking we're going to hold some content until the final release.
No, yeah. I hope it works out for you. I really hope it works out. It seems like a pretty good plan, at least from my front.
Yeah.
So, I'm also kind of curious. So you started from, you went AAA, enough for a while with Microsoft Studios. But how's life different now? Because now that you are doing your own thing, is the change all that big? What are the major differences? What do you miss? What did you hate? That kind of stuff. Is there anything that kind of comes to mind when thinking about where you were at to where you are now?
Yeah, I guess the biggest change is going from working for a company to working for yourself is kind of a big adjustment to get used to. Just because you have to kind of plan out your own day, which is requires 1, organization, which I've never been too good at, and 2, just motivation. When you're working for yourself, you could just be I'll just play a game for an hour. Nobody's gonna stop you from doing that.
Yep.
But then you have to kind of have the willpower to actually get work done. So that's one thing, and then the other is just the way you look at time is kind of a little different. For example, if I'm really tired when I'm working for myself and I don't get work done for the day, let's say I just kind of slack off and procrastinate, then I'm basically losing a day of work. But then if you're working for someone else and you go to work tired, you could work the full 8 hours. You might not get as much done, but you get paid for 8 hours and then you go home. So for me, rather than trying to get up and kind of start the day early, I'll just always make sure I get 8 hours of sleep, and then I'll go from there, right? Because there's no point for me to try to work through a day if I'm tired, because I'll just lose time. So there's that kind of stuff to think about, because you're on your own time, so you have to plan around that.
So, in terms of some of those differences in the AAA, I'm assuming you had like maybe a manager or something like that. What's one main kind of more specific thing that you can think of that differentiates where you are now from the AAA, from when you were working with Microsoft? Is if there's any one thing that comes to mind. If not, you already gave a great answer.
Right. Like when you're doing AAA, like traveling feels a bit different. Because I would actually go do conventions for Microsoft. I worked on Killer Instinct, so around the time of Xbox One, I would show the game at different conferences and talk. I could talk to the design a bit, and then also just give people like an overview of it.
Yeah.
So like when you're working at a AAA company and you're traveling, you're basically everything's expensed, and you just can stay at like whatever hotel you booked through Microsoft, which is always like pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go the indie route, like you're definitely more on top of your budget because it's basically just right out of your pocket. So then you're like thinking about like how much everything's costing, as well as being stressed about if people are covering the game. Because like if people, like when I was working at Microsoft, if people wrote an article about Killer Instinct, that was like great for the game, but like you're not as like there's not as much at stake when it's like your own game that you're basically going to have to make money off of. So it's definitely more stressful to travel for your indie game and show that somewhere than it is to like do that for a AAA kind of game you're working on.
Yeah, that's not something I had really thought about before. I don't think anybody in our club has really thought about that before, like the traveling part. We haven't heard much about conventions. That's actually really cool that you brought that up. So now with those in mind, and you don't really have to give like an actual answer for this, but what do you prefer now? Do you prefer the indie lifestyle, or do you miss the AAA lifestyle? Like with all the differences that there are, is either one better than the other?
I think so. Like I had always wanted to do my own thing. Like just the drive to like do your own project kind of like builds on you. Especially like me as like a designer, like I always like to like have as much control as I can. So like obviously on Rivals, I have like 100% control of like kind of the design direction and the development. So like that's something I had wanted when I was working at Microsoft, like when I was planning to go indie for a while. So sometimes like when I'm bogged down, I have to remind myself that like this is like the dream, right? Like you're living the dream, you can do it. So that's kind of funny, but then there's some like grass is greener stuff too, where you're like, man, like I wish I was getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, or I wish I had time to like go to the gym like multiple days a week like I used to. So like that kind of stuff, it's nice being on a routine more so, because it's definitely easier to be on a routine when you're in AAA. But like if you have enough determination and willpower, like you can definitely do the indie life and not give up like anything else too. Like if you can work for 8 hours straight on your game, and then you can go out still, you can do whatever. There's a lot of people who say like it will ruin your social life and it will kind of eat everything else, which is definitely possible to let that happen, but you can also like, it's all about managing time, right? Like the indie development is just a big time management game. So if you're good at managing time, then you can make the indie life.
It's a game of making games.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like what's it, Game Dev Story, where like just kind of manage making the game and manage the time. It's not too different actually from a high level.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. So let me just check it right here real quick. So, what's it like being out in Seattle, being around other game designers? Because a lot of, I explained it to you earlier, but we're out here in the Midwest, out in Iowa, we don't know really. There are no game design companies for real. There's a couple in like Des Moines, but one of them makes like slot machine games, and the other one is actually in like Chicago, and they were big at one point, but I think they've since kind of petered off, and I don't even know if they're around anymore. But, so yeah, we don't really have other game designers except for other university students like myself and the people, our friends up in Minnesota at Glitch and in Wisconsin and stuff. So, what's it like being around like other game designers? And kind of, because you guys have a bit of a scene out there with like indies and stuff. So, kind of what's that like?
Yeah, so I personally don't take advantage of it very well. Like, I'm not actually too involved in like the Seattle indie scene, even though I know there is one. Like, I'm on the Facebook group and I see that they'll have meetups and there's like industry nights, but there's also like specific indie gatherings. But like, the good news for you guys is like I've always been kind of more online in my approach to my like a lot of the friends I have in the indie scene, like I met just through the internet. Like I met them through TigSource, or I met them through Twitter. So like I was in a pretty similar position when I first started, because in Philadelphia there isn't too many game companies. There's a couple indie companies actually, like that. One is just graduates from my college, Drexel University, and then there's like a couple startups that were happening like before I left. But they were in a very similar position where they had like a slot machine company in New Jersey that people would try to intern at, and then they didn't really have like an established scene. But like if I was making this game in Philadelphia, I don't think it would look any different at all, because I just work from my apartment, right? I don't actually like the best part of being in Seattle is just being like close to something like Microsoft. Because like I'm closer to the ID at Xbox team, so if I need to set up a meeting with them about something, I could just like email them and then get over to the office. So like that's pretty nice for location, but I think for me personally, and I know for other indies as well, like a lot of guys who do these kind of distributed teams, you can pretty much be anywhere in the world. I know one guy on Twitter who like his whole thing was he knew he was going to do indie development, so he just found like the cheapest cost of living place that still had good internet. So he's actually like in Japan somewhere where like the internet's nice, but like he's not in a city, and he's making indie games with like people all over the world. So yeah, you can definitely make it work anywhere for what I'm doing. And if you want to do AAA, then you're definitely going to want to be
at one of the hot spots.
Yeah, Seattle, San Francisco, LA. There's a couple places on the East Coast too that have some game development studios. But yeah, you're definitely going to want to be in like a hot spot, just because there's way more companies and way more opportunity.
Yeah, there's more places to put your resume.
Yeah, and then also like just being close, and like for example, if I was more involved in the indie scene, which I should be, after this game, if I wanted to do AAA or like a bigger indie studio, like I'd have way more connections then too, right? Like you have more friends.
You just know more people. There are more people around.
Yeah, but I think the good news is like if you want to do like a small game and do it with an online team, then you can be anywhere. You don't have to, be in like a hub kind of.
So then, what kind of tools do you use for online stuff? You mentioned Skype, Twitter, you met people through. Like, do you use forums or anything like that?
Trello is a big one for keeping track of our tasks. It's
Trello. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a free web app that's really nice. And then we do a lot of Skype, mostly like a lot of Skype text chat is like a big communication for us. And then we have like a forum for our playtesters, but that's kind of different than main development. That's like we'll give builds out to like a handful of people, and they'll like submit bugs, and we do that over at the Smashboards forum, which gets us like people who are into Smash Bros.
Yeah, it gets the kind of people that will find ways to break the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I was gonna actually ask if those forums were yourselves, but then you mentioned you were using Smashboards. But you don't have like any of your own forums or anything. Like I didn't see one on your blog. I don't think.
No, so we, on our website, we just link to our Smashboards thread, and then once we get like onto early access, we'll look at if we want to have a forum solution, like if we want to have, because obviously one thread is just going to like people are just going to drop in and like talk about random things. It'd be nicer to be able to have like different topics. So we could, like, the nice thing is Steam offers that, so there's a community right there. You can just use Steam's page, or we can maybe like figure something out with Smashboards. We're in a pretty good position where we already have like a small fan base that will follow the game into release, so like that definitely helps, because as an indie there's lots of indies who like start forums and stuff, and then like it's an empty
kind of like a bit of a ghost town.
The developers have to like make extra accounts to like make it look like there's people talking.
What? People, they don't do that. Are you kidding me?
The best is, I've seen this before, and I was pretty much 100 convinced that it was like the developer going in to like cause drama about the game, because he would basically like insult the game in like a specific way that he like when he came back as the developer, he had like an answer for it. He's like, oh yeah, we're actually working on that right now. Here's a video. And I was like, this seems a little fishy.
Yeah, I gotcha. No, that's interesting. But so with playtesting, you do it mostly through the Smashboards. Is that actually like effective? Getting people like, are you actually able to get people to play your game and find bugs and stuff?
Yeah, so we have like a ton of bugs that we find, and one of the playtesters over at Smashboards kind of like heading it up, and he like compiles them, and he also uses Trello, so like that helps us out. And then we also I'll give it to people who apply based on like their description, and then I'll also like target some streamers who like have a way to kind of spread the word. And then a lot of times they'll end up like submitting bugs too, right? Because like they end up playing it a good amount, and they'll be like,
because they'll crash it or something.
This stream. Yeah, and then they'll send a video too, so I'll be like, oh, I can see exactly kind of what happened because they did it, while they were streaming.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. That's something that we're also interested in, is, like the prolonged game design part, because with our university, we don't really do much playtesting, because our projects are like one-offs or, like 3-4 week projects that are done, and then we're just kind of, shove them to the side, we're done with them. But playtesting is something that I think we could definitely use more like exposure to and stuff like that. So I'll definitely point them to like watch how kind of you handle it and stuff like that. That's
when I
really useful.
When I made Super Smash Land, like I said, I played it with just my friends in like our school labs.
Yeah.
And I made like the 4-player mode pretty early, so like it became kind of like a tradition where like we would basically do this thing where we would take a break and all play it, and then we would like all go eat right after that.
Yeah.
And it kind of became like a set routine that we had. So like that was really nice because it didn't have to be as formal, right? Like I was working on a local multiplayer game, so like every day I was making some kind of changes, and then we could like just play it in the labs for like 30 minutes, and then I would get feedback from them. So it's definitely a really good environment, being at a university or a college for building like a game like Towerfall or something like that.
Yeah, no, for like couch co-op, it works really well.
Yep.
And is Rivals gonna have couch co-op?
Yeah, so it has 1 to 4 players local, and then we're looking at 1v1 for online, but that also means you could do like a 2v2 where like two people on each computer.
Yeah.
So that's how we're set up. It's mostly couch co-op.
What is your number one piece of advice for anybody looking to go indie, at all? Yeah.
Yeah, so The biggest college advice is like repeat it online over and over again. I mean, you said it right at the beginning, which is just like make games, right?
Yeah.
That's like the biggest one you'll hear. For specifically indie, the biggest advice I can give would be kind of know what you want to make from the beginning. When you start a bigger project, right? When you start a game that you think you're going to sell, or a game that you're going to like, kind of make your full-time gig. Because I see a couple other indie developers who will basically, they'll do the same thing. They'll save up enough money to go indie, and they'll have like an idea of what they want to build, but they don't like have it set in stone. So then they end up spending a lot of time like experimenting and like changing their vision, changing their goals. I've even seen like a couple of indies where like they're starting a game in like a platformer perspective, and they're doing like a platformer RPG, and then they decide like, well, I don't really need the platformer part, so they like switch to an RPG, and then they like have to change all their assets, right?
Yeah.
So like, I would say make sure like you kind of know the game already. I had the advantage of I knew I wanted to make a Smash-like, and I had been building them, so I actually had some familiarity with how I would do it, because I would just improve upon my previous attempt. So I definitely had like a clear goal of what I was going to do and like what my scope was. And that's part of why like a year later, because I started last April, so a little over a year later, I'm where I'm at, because I didn't have as much time to like, kind of experiment and find the game. I like already knew what the game was. So that's a big part of going indie. Like, don't make sure you have like a set plan. Don't just like, quit your day job and then work in obscurity.
Yeah. About, I don't know, is there some kind of like estimate that you could give for how much thought or pre-planning would be useful before going into actually making your own game? Like, I don't know, how far would you say would be useful to go before starting work on it?
Yeah, I would say, so my answer kind of ties into it. I think just knowing like your core vision is important, right? For me, I knew I wanted to make a Smash game that played the way I wanted to play. Yeah. So I knew I wanted to like, I wasn't just going to duplicate the game straight up. I was going to make it play like very combo heavy, and just kind of move sets based on ideas that I had floating around. But then the biggest thing for kind of keeping your game vision intact would be, and not a lot of indies like to do this, like it's not very popular, is announce early, which is what I did. I announced the game last July with a trailer, and I was very early in development. I was probably April to July, so like 3 or 4 months in, and I didn't have a ton to show. I just had 2 characters, and all the art was done by me. Which now, like, if you go watch that trailer, like, it kind of looks already old. But doing that kind of gives you, it put me in the public eye a little bit, like, not a ton, because not a lot of people saw it, but it gave me some accountability, which means, like, people know what the game is now, they have expectations, and then you want to keep impressing, right? So you want to keep showing stuff, and that kind of gives you motivation to, like, make sure you get something done every month.
Yeah.
Because we do developer updates once a month on our website, and we always want to have stuff to show and like development to show. So announcing early kind of gives you a good accountability. Yeah. And it also helps keep your project, like I said, it keeps your vision straight. At least it should. Because as soon as you announce, you kind of are showing what type of game you want to make.
Yeah.
Now people want to see that game. So that would be my biggest advice, would be like, don't work in obscurity, so announce early, try to get it in front of people who are interested, and then know kind of early on the type of game you want to make. Like, don't spend too much time, back and forth experimenting with, genres.
Yeah. So how did you announce yours then? Was it through your own website, or did you use some forum thread or Reddit or something like that?
Yeah, my biggest promotion probably would be Reddit, and then later my own Twitter, just because I kind of built a following kind of for the game. But on Reddit, what I would do is like self-promoting is like a pretty risky thing because like obviously if you sound like a company, then you're probably just gonna get like removed from whatever subreddit you go to. Like, what I would do is I post on our Smash Bros. The first trailer.
Yeah.
And I just said it like, hey, like I'm working on a game inspired by Super Smash Bros. And like I used to play competitively. Like here's our first trailer. And then I would just answer comments in the comment section. And then I would only post when I just had a big update, right? So I made the first trailer in July, I posted that. I made the next one in December, and I posted that. Sometimes, like, other people will post the game to the subreddit just because it's, like, inspired by Smash.
Mm-hmm.
But you definitely don't want to, like, spam people because then you're coming across as, like, just, like, you know, it's easy. But then Reddit's a huge promotion tool. Like, we got to the front page of our Smash Bros. And the front page of our Xbox One. Which,
really?
Yeah, so those both, like, got us a ton of views on the first trailers. So we kind of started getting the word out even before we, like, went to conventions and, like, showed it to people. We kind of already had some people know about it.
Yeah. No, that's... Good job. Congrats, man. Well, awesome. We're running out of time a little bit here. But before we go... I get to ask you some of our members' favorite question. What's your favorite video game of all time? And I don't know why.
Yeah, I think for me that was pretty easy. I do two because one's obvious. Smash Bros. Melee would be pretty high on the list. I actually played Brawl competitively, which a lot of people like kind of just stare at me when I say that. But when I was in college, so I started in 2007. And I think Brawl came out in 2008. So then
like
that game actually like took over our college scene at Drexel too. Like we were on the East Coast, so like Brawl was just like the big tournament game.
Really?
Yeah, so I played that a lot. And my Melee skills got rusty like because of that. But like I still watch Melee. Like I was watching it yesterday. I was watching a CEO, which is like a big tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So... And then, for obvious reasons, the design just has stuck with me. And then, game in, like, recent that I've been playing a lot, I play a lot of League of Legends.
A classic game.
Which is, yeah, I mean, I'm, like, a competitive gamer, so, like,
yeah.
I play those games, like, you know, like, stomping people is, like, a competitive mix. But the thing with League, what I like telling people is, you can kind of see some of that in... Rivals of Aether, like if you look closely, because the very first character we made, at a high level, like all I had written down on paper was Wolf from Super Smash Bros. Brawl / like PM, and Bran from League of Legends, and you just combine those into one character, and that's how you get Zetterburn, who's our like fire lion.
Yeah.
And then there's also some, like, inspiration in other characters' movesets. A lot of people, like, really love Raster's Wind Current. And they'll be like, that's like I never, like, would have thought of that. Like, he basically puts out a projectile and it leaves a line on the screen, and then he can move around faster inside of it.
Oh, that's cool.
And it helps him a ton because, like, once you have that out, not only can you, like, get to the guy quicker, but it helps your combos, too. Because if they try to DI... horizontally, you can actually catch them. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm a genius. But it's actually just based on Galio's Tornado move he has, where he, like, puts out a wind stream and he can go a little faster, and it's just like, you know, turn 2D, and then the impact of it's bit bigger. But I'm basically, like, taking things from games I like and, like, manipulating them to fit into Rivals of Aether.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you like it, it's obviously gonna be fun. So, I meant like if you run a feature in a game you like, you can put it in your game and make you like it too. So, I mean, it works out.
Yeah.
Cool. Hello, people, and welcome back to End Slate for BWDT episode 2. That was Dan Fornace, and guys, he is so cool, he's so great, but really go check out Rivals of Aether or Ether or whatever it is. It's such a phenomenal game. If you're a fan of Smash Brothers, but like, if you're a fan of like all the intricacies of Melee and things like that, like, Rivals of Aether is gonna be right up your alley. It's such a good game. I loved it. It's a ton of fun, and I play Smash like casually, and it's still a ton of fun. I'm really excited for that hidden character that he has planned. It's gonna be so great. But yeah, I really don't have too much more to say, except for the fact that I really wanted to reiterate that we are ISUGC, but these videos are in no way just for us. These videos are for you guys at home watching this, anybody from anywhere at all, and that we would really like to get in contact with you if you are another club or organization that's helping, like, spread the good word or spread the word about game design and game development, because we would love to get networked with you and like maybe even do some collaboration stuff or whatever, because we could really do some great stuff together if we just work together, because none of us know about each other, and I really want to fix that. We could fix this if we just knew about each other. So just shout out at me in the comments or on Twitter or on through a DM here on YouTube. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, this week I wore my favorite t-shirt that I've ever bought from the Yeti. Make sure you go check them out because I am such a Yeti fanboy, because I love Yeti. I don't have too much more to say though, so guess I'll sign off.